Hi guys, this is Forgetful Scholar. Let's chat about books. So this week would be Bought in an Auction, Wannabe Spy, and let's see, Cheetah Bootlegger. Yeah, okay. So let's get into it. The first book, I have to admit, after last week's the fourth Wallflower series, I really was craving a historical FM romance novel that had a secondary plot to it, that it wasn't just the romance. So I picked this book specifically because it's a revisit. I always want to say reread because it is such a fun word to say. But, revisit sounds more like an adult word. And, I try. So I'm trying to see when this one was published. So it's Say You Love Me by Johanna, Lindsey, and it was published in December 1997. So let's get the cover up there. Say You Love Me, Johanna, Lindsey. And then no coordination today. There we go. There we go. See, with this one, I always wondered, I don't know if you could see, the sideburns were always on her looked a little funky to me, but other than that, there we go. Okay. So this is a part of the Malory series. I believe this is 5 in the Malory series. So basically our main character is Derek Malory, and he is the only child of the oldest Malory brother, Jason. And he has a lot of pressure on his shoulders to be, no scandals, nothing like that, considering his younger uncles are such black sheep and so many scandals and things like of that nature. Now this takes place before the holiday book we read, that is his father's love story. So it takes place before that. So, and Derek takes after the blonde, green-eyed, tall built like a brick wall side of the family. And he's a really good guy. He tries to not get into scandals, but he is a young, handsome, rich lord with not a lot of responsibility. So him and his friends, including his younger cousin Jeremy, go out to play. They play. So so Derek, Jeremy, and their friend Percy, they go to. I want to it's a house of sin. Basically, it's a whorehouse. It's a fancy, dressed up whorehouse. Okay, that's what it is. It's fine. They go there, and there's an auction going on for a young lady who is untouched, who's a virgin, to be a mistress for X amount of time. Now, that is where we that's not where we meet our main character, but that's how these two meet. So the heroine is Kelsey, and her season at the time did not go well. Even though she's gorgeous and she's very sweet, the thing is there's a huge scandal and a silly rumor about madness in her bloodline and things like that, because her mother, in an argument, shot the father and then accidentally fell and killed and died. So I know that was kind of thrown in there, just kind of tossed in there, and never really explained. And I read this book maybe 3 times, and I'm still like, what? So her and her younger sister basically raised by her aunt and uncle, and the aunt's pretty cool, but the uncle has financial problems and doesn't want his wife to know. So he talks Kelsey into selling herself as a mistress to pay off his debts. And in Kelsey's head, she's like, okay, I'm not going to get married because this scandal came up, even though her son is in line for a dukedom. The scandal, no one wants to marry a woman that, has crazy in her blood, give it to the children, no. So she figures she's done. There's no hope for her. The only hope is for her little sister. So she agrees. So that kind of shows you Kelsey's personality. She's a little bit of a pushover. People kind of take advantage of her pretty easily. So she agrees. So she's basically being auctioned off as a mistress. I know, it's so ooh. Okay. I think this was the time before the whole subcategory of dark romance showed up, because the bodice rippers, there was a lot of sometimes there was darker themes to it. Anyway. And Derek buys her, not because he thinks it's right to buy her or, anything like that. He does it to keep her safe because the other lord, the top bid for her, is a man he had encounters before, and he knows he likes to harm the women he takes to bed. So he buys Kelsey to keep her safe. Now, I read this book out of a little bit of pettiness because the fourth wallflower had a great storyline that it didn't follow through with this. Like a great secondary storyline other than the romance to follow through with this. And this is 1997. The main plot line is the romance story. And the second plot line is basically like a sadist who likes to keep, hurt, and disfigure women. I know, it's kind of like boom, out of nowhere, but that's what it is. So I'm going to say a little bit more of the story just because it's a little older, This story is a 3-star for me. I do enjoy it. It's fine. Derek and Kenzie, they're sweet. The love story is kind of a little cliche, and that's why it's a 3-star. But the third act conflict really gets your heart pumping. So there's a little bit of clues in the beginning about the secondary storyline, and the main storyline, the romance, takes place throughout the huge chunk of the book. So he buys her, and there's some, like, he sets her up as his mistress, and there's some misadventures, classic romance novel stuff that they actually, instead of just falling into bed, they have to get to know each other, and they fall in love, And Kelsey is, I always want to say Kenzie, but it's Kelsey, is convinced, like, oh, he's respectable, he's in line for a high title, this is where it ends, But Derek's like, oh, I'm gonna marry, he's just completely in love with her, he's trying to figure out how to be with her forever. And then she gets kidnapped by the lord that tries to buy her before, and things escalate. So the third final conflict is intense, and there's a lot of descriptors, and makes your heart pump. And you're basically like, oh my god, Kelsey, get out of there. Get out of there. Whatever you have to do, get out of there. And in the Malory story, James Malory does show up. He always shows up. But this was in the vein where you kind of didn't mind it when he showed up in this. Because, yeah, his uncle was a pirate. He knows about underground. He has connections. Of course he's going to use it to try to find Kelsey. Because he's convinced he knows who took her. But he can't, find them, where he took her, this evil lord, where he took her. So that makes sense. I mean, maybe it's the New Jersey girl in me, but if something like that happened and I had a relative who was connected, yeah, I would, help me out, you know what I mean? So I get that. The storyline, the love line, has a great, wonderful, happy ending because it is Johanna and Lindsey, so there's going to be a sweet little ending. The mystery sadist ending was very satisfying as well. So I really did enjoy this one because it did show that even if 80% of your book, it's all the love line and them getting together, and that you could still spice in some things that are, make your heart pump and feel like there's actual consequences for the main characters, and you're not sure if they're gonna survive it, if they're not gonna survive it. It was just a nice little read. So again, 3 stars. I did enjoy it. I always enjoy reading the Malory books. Well, most of them. But I've gone into that before. Okay, so the second book, and that one's the bought at an auction, obviously. So this one is the Wannabe Spy. So this one is a steampunk trilogy, The Silver Skull, an Elemental Steampunk Chronicle, Book 2, by Renwick. That cover's just gorgeous, right? It's gorgeous. Now this book was close to 500 pages. It was 478 pages. And a bit of that is, a little chapter, taste chapter, fog brain, stop, of the next book, of the third book. It's a little taste of the third book. Anyway, sorry about that, guys. Fog brain happens. So this one follows Dr. Ian, I forgot his last name. Staton. Sorry. Dr. Ian Staton. And the sister to the first Steampunk Elemental Chronicle book, Olivia. Now, in the first book we saw her, she kind of seemed like a ditzy debutante. But who had talent for programming that she just pretends she doesn't have because it's not proper. I will say I did enjoy this book a lot more than the first book. Um, the only reason I gave it 3 stars instead of 4 is just, it had a lot of techno babble in it, and for me, what my older sister calls techno babble, and for me that wasn't really my thing. It just didn't hit. But I really appreciated how much detail the author wanted to put into this, and show like they really care about this and everything like that. However, I did like Olivia and I did like Ian a lot better than the first couple in the first book. I really did like their characters and the growth in the characters and their internal thoughts and monologues and all that stuff. So that was really fantastic. The only reason it's not a 4 is because there was just so much technobabble that sometimes my eyes kind of glazed over. And I hate that because it was really interesting otherwise. Like, it was really a fun ride. Otherwise, there's spies and there's hostages and the Germans and then the Russians and the Chinese. Like, it was pterodactyls, like pet pterodactyls. Like, what? Like, there was a lot going on. So Olivia, it turns out, she isn't a ditz. That the man that she was going to marry, Lord Snyder, that bounced when they found out that their other sister, Emily, married a gypsy, he was actually so the queen thought he might be a traitor. So socialite liaison is what Olivia said she was. So basically they marry targets to the crown and they feed back information to the queen. So that's what she's been trained to do, and we find a little bit more about the family. So the Duke, from the last book, we know he's kind of in charge of this black ops of spies. But what I didn't get from the first book is the mom is very much a spy as well. So that was a little cool. Even though the mom was pretty annoying in this book, but I think she was meant to be, like that was kind of her purpose. So basically, Ian is a brilliant doctor that used to work for the crown. He used to be one of the spies, but he's looking for a cure for his sister's genetic disease, which sounds like brittle bone syndrome. It killed his mother. The sister, like just a tumble can break like all the bones in her legs, things like that. So he's trying to do that. And the thing is why he left the service, because his research assistant stole his stuff, and he thought the Duke, which is Olivia's father, was involved. So he kind of was like, screw you, I quit, kind of a thing. Turns out that the sister gets kidnapped, and the Germans want him to come, like basically come here for your sister or we're gonna kill her. So he goes, and it turns out Warwick is working for the Germans and is experimenting on the guards to give them unbreakable bones. That's what he promised the Germans. It really just gave the poor guardsmen horrible bone cancer and tumors and things like that, like disfiguring tumors and crippling pain, things like that. It's pretty descriptive and pretty horrible. I actually felt bad for the henchman. I was like, oh, that sucks, man. The sister is there and she's being tortured and experimented on. Like the research assistant swears he loves the sister up and down, yet he does a bone marrow extract without knocking her out. Like, she's just tied up and she's screaming and it's torturous. So yeah, buddy, you were a piece of shit right there. You know what I mean? So the spies, led by Mr. Black that we met in the first book, who's half Romani. He works for the crown, is basically in charge of it. It seems like the second in charge to the Duke. He tells Olivia to plant a listening device on the dirigible that Ian and her happen to be on, because she's going to Italy to marry a different target. Whereas, they want to listen to what's going on with Ian. And the thing is, like, you don't really know what Black thinks about Ian, because they used to work together, but they don't work together anymore, and they know how much the sister means to them, and the Germans have the sister, and unfortunately the Queen hasn't sanctioned a rescue because talks are so fragile, and she doesn't want to risk an outright war, which sucks, but also, the Queen has to think about everybody, not just, so, Olivia wants to prove that she can be a field agent. See, she doesn't want to be a socialite liaison anymore. She wants to be a field agent. She tried to get her father to let her do the widow dispensation, which means a social liaison when the target dies. They're widow now, and they could be a field agent. And the father's like, no, no. Because, he knows that the widow's dispensations, a lot of times they had to seduce their targets. So I don't mind him for being like, hell no, my daughter's not doing that. You kind of don't mind it. But in Olivia's head, she thinks no one believes in her and she could do this. She's she's smart. She could do this. She's gorgeous. She knows how to flirt. She knows how to seduce. She could do this, and the thing is, I really liked Olivia's character. Like, I thought she was interesting and dynamic, and, she would switch back from being like, what? To the, her target, and then all of a sudden, like, boom, bust out brilliant theories and stuff like that when Ian called her on it. And the thing is, you expect the typical trope of, like, them falling in love and then him finding out she was spying on him, being angry. But no, Ian is a brilliant, brilliant doctor who used to work for spies, who used to be a spy himself. He knows whose daughter she is. He knows she's listening in. He knows, he thinks that he is her target, that she's a field agent, and this is her target, When they get to the castle, and there's a lot going on in this book because it is really long, but I will say it is a fun ride. It really is. So give it a try if you want some steampunk spies. It's a fun try. So the Count is leering at Olivia, and originally he was just going to say Olivia's his research assistant, and then he's like, no, she's my wife, don't touch her. So there's a little bit of, like, that's where the typical romance trope kind of starts. Like, he's attracted to Olivia from the beginning, but he also knows there's more to her. So, like, he's not just attracted by her blonde curls and luscious curves. He's like, no, there's a mind behind this, and I find her mind dynamic and interesting, which is nice, So basically they work together while they try to save the sister's life, try to fix all this, and, like, there's a lot going on, and it is a really fun ride. The spy ending was left a little open-ended, I'm guessing, for the next book, because it is quite a few books. The love ending was really sweet. I was really satisfied with it. I like the sort of twists and turns when it came to her father's orders and what he actually thought and things like that. So that was really good. So if you're interested in steampunk spies with pet pterodactyls coming in every once in a while, check it out. I liked it. 3 stars. I liked Olivia and Ian. I just found it hit a little bit more for me, their personalities in the first book. But I liked the first book enough to read the second one, so there's that. Alright, so our third book will be the Cheetah Bootlegger. So, this is Blind Tiger, The Pride Won by, you guessed it, Jordan L. Hawk, and this seems to be the beginning of this author's new series, and I am here for it. Jordan L. Hawk, you've got me. I am a fan. Like, I love the Wyborn Griffin, which I will continue to do. I love the Wrath and Rune, which I will continue. And this is like kind of the Hex world, it seems. And I haven't read those books of theirs, so I'm going to check those out because it seems sort of like the same universe as that. So, this play takes place during Prohibition, and it's in Chicago. And it is standard knowledge that there are shifters, animal shifters. So the animal shifters, and there's witches and hexmen. So let me try to explain. So hexes are sort of like talismans, and they're put on paper by hexmen. Witches can charge them, but witches that are bound to their familiars or animal shifters have more power because it's like they double both of their abilities. An animal shifter, just by looking at a witch, if it's their witch, they know. It's like an instant, like, our magics are completely compatible, you and me, simpatico, let's go. Now, what I did like, it was basically, the Pride is, I always say this wrong, a speakeasy. And they all call themselves the Gotti family, but they're all obviously different races and different ages. They're not actual blood siblings. They met in orphanage. So it's really sweet. Found family is very, very sweet. It's very, very sweet. So they're all big cat shifters, like dangerous, like leopards and lions and tigers. And the main character, Alistair, he is a cheetah shifter. And I liked Alistair. He's kind of the typical broody hero, and this is MM, by the way, and the steampunk one was FM. This is MM, and Alistair's sort of the tiki, the brooding hero, but he does have surprising depths. Like, he will grow emotionally, which is really sweet. They basically work in the gangster's territory, but the gangster doesn't really bother them because in this world, big cats like such tigers and lions are kind of seem too dangerous, and they just he doesn't want to risk his people being devoured, basically, because people forget that there's people behind those animal bodies. So Alistair, the cheetah, he's kind of even in the first paragraph, like you see that he's a jerk, like he's an asshole. But I don't blame him. He has reasons, and I don't want to give too much away because the reasons are really, yes, completely 100%. I would be an asshole too, Well, I already am, but the other hero is very sweet. His name is Sam. He's a country bumpkin that moved to Chicago because he couldn't handle it, and his family was pretty abusive, and he's just like, he had enough final straw, and he moved to Chicago, and he's living with his cousin, who is a hexman, and his cousin, who's a black sheep of family and disowned, happily took Sam in and is teaching him how the trade of hexmen. And there's not a lot of hexmen out there, and the most out there that just completely copy the same kind of spells over and over again. But the cousin was unique in like he liked to make his own and new ones and like experiments with it. And it turns out Sam is a witch. So Sam and Alistair. Okay. So this one, the love story, also a subplot of a gang war or a mafia war. I loved the love story. I thought it was good pacing, especially considering both of their issues, because they both have issues. Some of it was typical romance tropes, but again, done well. Who cares? It moves the plot along. They're fun sometimes. It's fine. The Mafia War ending was pretty satisfying too and pretty wicked. This author's fantastic with action and fantastic writing magic action, which I can see how difficult that is. So this is 4 stars. It's not 5 stars because it looks like it's the beginning of a whole series, and you guys know how I feel about that. This one is 212 pages. And I believe a little bit of it, there is a preview to another book in there, the next book in there. Well worth it. It was so much fun. I mean, all 3 books this week were a lot of fun for me, which was good. I needed it, a little stressed, so that was nice. Sam. He's a sweet little pumpkin, and when you find out, and this author is fantastic of weaving in, backstory, through the story seamlessly. And when I read about like how his family treated him, I was like, oh, and you just felt the same way Alistair does about it. You know what I mean? And I can't help but wondering if there's something else going on with the family, because they definitely singled out Sam even before a horrible event that kind of he felt he deserved the abuse after this horrible event. Again, I don't want to give too much away because it's brand new, and the author, I am a fan. So I can't wait till the next book comes out about that one. So that being said, it's time for me to, I don't want to, but it's time for me to get back to the real world. So see you later.